Vicki Saylor, Senior Manager for Education and Community Partnerships for Common Sense Media. On the next slide, it's just a little bit of background of who we are, and this is a registration link. So if they can share this in the chat with you, that would be great. If after today or during the presentation, you want to access any of the resources that I'm talking about, you would just create an account, and it's a free account. And this will allow you to open all of our free resources. And so there's the registration link. And again, we don't take your information and sell it. It's just for us. We are a nonprofit. So this is just our way to report back to our donors, our funders, that our website is being utilized and that our families and educators find our resources important to use. So that's the only reason that we ask for you to sign up. And then on the next slide, if you go down a little bit, you'll see a little bit of background of who we are. So we are the nation's leading nonprofit organization dedicated to improving the lives of kids and families by providing the trustworthy information, education, and independent voice they need to thrive in the 21st century. Now, that is a mouthful. In short, we are here to help support educators and families navigate this digital world. We're here to provide, we have educator resources, we have a K-12 curriculum, we have preschool resources for our preschool educators so that they can host their own family workshops. We have our ratings and reviews, which most people know us by. So if you want to view a movie or you want to download an app, you can go onto our ratings and reviews, and it will give you, a little synopsis of what it is. And then it will also give you a rating for that resource. We rate 1 to 5 on things like violence, language, drugs and alcohol use, role models, nudity, things of that nature, so that you can make an informed decision. And we have those ratings in English and Spanish, and we have them for movies, books, shows, podcasts, video games, you name it. And we also have best of lists. So if you're looking for certain lists, for example, if you have a teenager who's maybe losing interest in reading, you can go on there and there might be for example, a book list for teens, of most popular books or books that can engage a teenager, for example. So on the next page, we're just going to keep going. I know we lost a little bit of time, but this is just a reminder on how connected our world is. Now, when I look at this slide, I can't wrap my head around it when I see that 167 million videos are being viewed every minute of every day on TikTok. Now, that is the big thing right now. TikTok is all over the place, right? There's the love-hate relationship with this app, but I just can't get over how many videos are being watched every minute. So 167 million videos are watched every minute of the day. So if there are, I don't know how many minutes in a day, that's how many videos are being streamed. It's ridiculous. So we know that Facebook isn't used that much by kids anymore, but parents are still on there. Snapchat's very popular still with our kids. Instagram's very popular. It's not Twitter anymore. This is a little older, this slide, but now it's called X. That is still popular with maybe more adults. I think some teenagers are getting into that. But we also have other ways that we stream, right? We go onto YouTube, which is very popular with the kids. We have Netflix and other streaming apps. So just to get your mind in this space right now to see how hyper connected we are and why it's so important to have these discussions with our families. So next page, please. So today's agenda, what we're going to do is we're going to create a plan for supporting healthy digital habits. That is going to be the foundation of how we are going to stay safe and healthy online. We want to create a plan for supporting those habits. It all starts with laying that foundation down. And we're also going to explore how to set up devices with safety in mind. A lot of times parents feel that they're being left behind because they feel that their kids know more than they do when it comes to their digital devices. So we're gonna try to adopt a different mindset and not say those things about ourselves anymore. We're gonna try to educate ourselves and stay up to date as much as possible. We know that digital technology is rapidly changing every day. It seems like the minute we learn one thing, another thing happens. If we learn one application, another one is introduced. We know that kids can get kind of sneaky and they can turn things off when it comes to digital safety features on your phone. So we're going to talk about just having those conversations with our kids, finding those solutions to common digital challenges, whether that is social media situations, whether it is online communication, whether it is mental health issues that you think might be affected because of their social media use or their device use. And we're also going to share some common sense resources you throughout the workshop if we're able to share those in the link, as a link in the chat. And then we're also going to leave time for Q&A because I want to hear from you all. And during the presentation, I might pause and ask you to participate in the chat if you feel comfortable with giving your answers. And then at the end of the presentation, I'll ask for volunteers to maybe give their experiences or ask any questions that they may have. So we're going to keep going. We're going to do this quickly because we did spend a little bit of time with some technical difficulties. So we're going to go on the next page, just scroll down a little. There you go. So right now, if you feel comfortable sharing your thoughts in the chat, I would love to see what you guys are all looking for. So what online behaviors do you want to see your kids demonstrate, and what online behaviors do you want to model? So that's a very important thing when we're talking about asking our kids to be safe and healthy online. We need to start with ourselves. The kids, you know, they look to us for everything. They learn what they live, right? So it's no different than any other parenting strategy. We want to be the best role models we can be. I'm guilty of, you know, telling when my kids were little, or not when they were little, but I say they were little, but they were in high school. They're all adults now. But when they were in high school, I remember saying, oh, you're spending too much time on, you know, at that time it was Facebook. I'm aging myself here, but you're spending too much time on Facebook and Instagram. And then I would, you know, be upset because of how much time they were spending on social media. But then I was spending a lot of time on it after work. I would find myself just losing sight of that time. And after a while, I would look at the clock and realize I've been on here an hour. And I'm sitting there telling my kids that they should only check social media and be on there maybe 20 minutes. But then I'm sitting there for an hour. So I got called out frequently on that. So when we're thinking about setting all of these guidelines, we really want to talk about our behavior and set that good example. On the next one, I'm going to look at the chat real quick and see what some of the answers were. So want to restrict access. Yes, that is very common to want to restrict access because that is the thing that we go to first, right? How am I going to keep my child safe? I'm going to set up my device properly. I'm going to restrict access. I'm going to make sure that they are as safe as possible. I don't want them exposed to dangerous situations, whether that's dangerous people, dangerous apps, dangerous content. That is a very good place to start. This person says, I have 4 kids and 2 of them are teenagers. And I really do not like the way my oldest is always on social media and games. I know it is such a struggle, right? And the thing with our world is when some of us, because some of you are very young, much younger than I am, but when I was little, we didn't have technology like this. And so we were constantly outside and we didn't have our cell phones. So the way that we could connect with our friends is we would be in person, and those neighborhoods were maybe a little different where everyone in our neighborhood went to the same school. In our world now, our neighborhoods are maybe farther apart from one another. Maybe we don't live in the same neighborhood where we go to school. And so kids really want the same connection we wanted when we were little. They just want to be connected. They want to have friends. So they want the same things we do. It just looks differently. And with that comes a lot of different challenges. And so that's why we're here today, to help you navigate those challenges, come up with some solutions that work for your family. And one way we can do that is starting with a discussion. Now, a lot of parents, they'll use parental controls in secret. They'll spy on their children. And then all of a sudden, the children find out about it, and it breaks down the lines of communication. It breaks down the trust. and it creates more tension and problems. So our recommendation is that you have these conversations up front with your children, regardless of the age, and you set those guidelines, you review your rules, and you let them know if you are going to use parental controls, be upfront about it. Don't use them in secret. Tell them what you're going to be using, what you're going to be checking, and why you're going to be checking that. They might not like the answer, but it's our role, it's our job as a parent to keep our kids safe. And much in the same way that you have other rules for your kids, it's the same thing with digital media. You're going to just carry those rules over. So what's good for one family might not be good for another. So you really have to think about your own family values and align your goals with your family values and have those, honest conversations with your kids. And I think that if we talk to our kids in a respectful way and we explain things to them, they're going to be more open with us. They're going to be more comfortable coming to us if they do run into a problem online. Because if we come at them from a different perspective, it might not feel as comfortable for them to come to us if they do run into a situation. They might feel that they're going to get in trouble for disobeying you, or they're going to be blamed for running into this situation. So the more you can be open and honest with them and have some empathy for them as well, that they also just want the same things we did, it'll help your relationship and those bonds of trust. The one thing that we want to try to avoid is breaking those lines of trust, especially with our teenagers, because sometimes the conflicts with technology do more harm to our families than the actual technology does, if that makes sense. So that conflict between our kids and us might affect them and their mental health worse than anything they might see online. So we really have to think about how we're going to balance all that, right? And one way is to align those with your family values and have those honest conversations in a caring way and letting them know, this is why you might not understand it right now, but you will one day, and I'm doing this for your own good, and please trust me on this. And just reminding them that if they ever do get into a sticky situation, that they can always come to you and you guys will work it out. Absolutely use those privacy settings and parental controls. You want to absolutely talk about keeping things private. Also not posting things that are personal information. If they have a school t-shirt, making sure they don't post pictures of themselves with their t-shirt, with their school name on there. Make sure that in the background, their street address isn't showing, like the name of their street and all of those things. So we want to make sure that we are setting them up for safety. And then also, of course, avoid communicating with strangers online. And even people that are following you, a lot of times kids will say, well, they're my followers, because a lot of kids want to be influencers right now. And so they'll say, well, they're my followers. Well, followers can still be strangers. So you as a family need to decide what you're comfortable with doing. And if that's going to be a guideline, then you say, you can only have followers that are your friends in real life. And then also teach.
Hello, Vicky.
Did the sound go out or is it just me?
No, I think there are some technical difficulties on Victoria's. Please bear with us.
Yeah,
I'm assuming she will
there
come
she
in
is.
momentarily. I think I just saw something. She probably is going to log back in.
Yeah.
Am I off?
Yeah, you were off. Yeah, okay.
Yes, you were off.
This
I'm
is my
sorry.
worst nightmare today. I'm so sorry for this.
No worries. Okay, you're back.
This is always what happens, you guys. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Welcome back. We're good.
I'm so sorry. It's like all week long. I'm fine. No internet connection problems. So here we go. All right. So anyway, discuss your online safety rules. Number one thing you can do. Let's go to the next slide, because we are going to run out of time. So again, when I said review your family values, like how long are you going to use technology? How are you going to balance it with other things like physical activity, in real life friendships, time with family, schoolwork, school activities, and then of course the rules and expectation, and then what is okay to share online. We say that everyone has a digital footprint. It's what you leave behind online. Those are your tracks. So what do you want to leave behind on track? That is going to be your story. So those are some things that you can talk to your kids about. What do you want to be known for online? How do you want to present yourself? Do you want to be known as, you know, a person who is kind and smart and responsible? Do you want to be known as an influencer and very advantageous? And there are no right or wrong answers, but you need to ask them what their goal is and see if that aligns with your family values. And if it does, great. And if it's not, then you want to prepare yourself to have that conversation and steer them to maybe closer to your family values and explain why. Okay, next slide. And one thing we have that can help ease that conversation and help facilitate that conversation is a family tech planner. So these are available online and they are by age group. So we have ones for very early childhood children. We have some for elementary school children, middle school and high school children. So you can use these as a guide to help you with that conversation. A lot of times we don't know where to begin. We need help asking the right kinds of questions when it comes to finding that right balance or the things that we want to talk about. So you can use these, you can print them and fill them out by hand, or you can also fill them out online. If you don't have access to a printer or you just want something even more simple, you can just create your own. Just take a piece of paper and a pencil or pen. If you have little ones, you can take markers and make it really fun. And then just focus on maybe 3 things that you want to focus on if you want to start small. So maybe the first one's going to be, we are only going to watch, or we're only going to have 2 hours of digital media a day. And that includes TV, internet, whatever, right? We're only going to have 2 hours a day on that. The next rule might be, we're only going to be friends with people that we know in person. The next one might be, I'm going to not use technology until I get all of my homework done. Whatever rules that you want to impose or include is up to you. But this is a planner that you can use to make that easier. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And somebody's asking for the link again to register for the website so they can get access. So of course, the first thing we're going to do is set up devices with safety in mind. So on the next slide, we're going to see some ways you can do that. So when you have your devices, whether it's a telephone or a tablet or a computer, on the next slide, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. The first thing that we want to think about is, should we buy our kids a phone or a device, or should we let them use ours? A lot of times we have the pass back phone, or we have the pass back digital device, like an iPad or another tablet. It's called the pass back because we're in the car and our kid asks for it and we're like, here you go. Whether it's theirs or ours, we need to make sure that they're set up. So if you're going to allow your kids to use your device, make sure that it's set up with safety in mind. If you're going to buy their own device, think about these things. Are they responsible? Do they take care of their things? Do they lose things? Do they have that self-regulation that you want them to have when you say, okay, it's time to put it away. It's time, it gets put away. You don't want something else that is in another way to create conflict with you and your kids. It's already hard enough to raise kids without putting another barrier there to cause another conflict. So if you think that they would be ready to have that self-regulation, when it's time to put it away, they put it away. If you think they're not there yet, you might want to think again before getting them their own device. And then also, what is their behavior like? Do they get along with people in person? If they get along well with people in person, then they will probably get along online. If they're already having problems in real life, that can also transfer onto relationships online. So if they are still learning to get along with others, or let's say they're having issues, maybe somebody's bullying.
We can't hear you, Vicky.
I think we just lost her again momentarily. She should be coming back
Okay.
momentarily. Yep.
Okay.
And we lost you for just a few seconds where you left us with the bullying.
Yeah. I was just saying that if your child is being bullied in person, it might not be a good idea to get them a device yet or have them be on devices, because that's just another avenue for them to be bullied. So think about how they react online, how they're behaving online, if they're able to put devices down, and then that could guide you. Right now, it's becoming very hard not to give in, but there are some options you can do. There are the basic phone, which might be good for younger kids, right? The older kids get a little embarrassed with the basic phone. They can get made fun of, and it's just not right, but it happens. There's also children phones that are made specifically for children, or there's the smartphone. A lot of times we give our kids our old phone. If you're going to give them a smartphone, I'm pretty sure there's a way you can turn off the internet on there. So just work with your own gut instinct, work with your provider, your internet provider, your phone provider. Ask them questions, let them know what your goals are, and then they can also help guide you. So let's go to the next slide. And a lot of people go straight to the privacy setting, which is great. Just remember to check it once in a while, because sometimes it'll go back to factory reset, which is not private. And then kids also can get really tricky and sneaky, and they can change things. You also want to check your privacy settings on any app or streaming service that you use. Your phone has its own settings, but then all of your apps, your streaming services, your social media platforms, all of those have their own privacy settings as well. So when I first got my phone, I thought if I set up my phone with privacy, parameters, that it would transfer into everything I did on my phone, but that's not the case. So everything that you're using on your phone has its own privacy settings. So make sure to review those, and then review them often, because again, they can factory reset, and then you don't even know that you're sharing your location, for example. That happens to me all the time. All of a sudden I'm sharing my microphone again. I'm sharing my camera when I've said not to on certain applications. So just make sure to have those regular check-ins. On the next slide, we're going to see what that one is. That one is talking about, just make sure that your kids also know about all of those phishing games. Like, for example, what Disney princess are you? Would you look good with long hair or short hair? This filter, that filter. Make sure that you tell your kids that those are not safe to do or to participate in. I know it's always fun to see what I'm going to look like a certain way, or, what Disney princess I'm going to be, or what celebrity I look like who's my celebrity look-alike. Those are all fun and they're very enticing, but what they're doing is they're gathering your data, they're gathering your information, and you want to stay away from those. That's how people can get into your accounts. That's how people, get your information. And just always be mindful about these games. There's sneaky tech tricks, and they're there for a reason. Let's go to the next slide. And yeah, what's the big deal? A lot of kids nowadays, mine included, don't have the same sense of privacy that we do. They don't really know a world that is as private as we had, because everything that they have access to is online. And so they've seen everything. They've seen so many things published publicly. They just think it's normal. So I asked my kids, I asked them, what do you think about privacy? And they said, oh, it doesn't bother me. I don't care. I don't care if everyone sees what I'm doing. And I'm appalled by it, going, didn't I teach you better? And that's just the way they are. And so why are we so worried about it? I think my 26-year-old now is finally worried about it, because she had her identity stolen. So they took her information, they took her social security number, and it's been very hard for her to navigate that. Excuse me. So just make sure that we talk about that. And then also, you can also practice those same guidelines for yourself. Identity theft is a really big thing right now, and it's probably going to get worse with this whole AI situation. So just be sure that they are aware of these things, and to set themselves up for as much success as possible, because these things can have lifelong consequences. Like what I said about my daughter, I don't think they want to give her a new social security number. So it's becoming quite the obstacle for her. Okay. And then we do a lot of research. So that's just a link for research. It's not necessary to read that, but I wanted just to give you guys some background on our organization, and all of the recommendations that I'm giving you today, all of the resources that you can find on our website, they're all backed by research. So it's not just because we said, oh, this is the best way to do it. We work with the Harvard Graduate School of Education. So we work really closely with Congress and other lawmakers to help protect our kids, to keep social media platforms accountable for the things that they're doing, for the things that they're collecting. I just wanted to keep you informed about that. So if you ever wanted to read any other reports, they are also available on our website. We have research on mental health. We have research on cell phone use. We have research on bullying. We have research on privacy. We have research on pornography use. We have research galore. So if you have a topic that you're interested in learning more about, you can look at our research reports. Next slide, please. And then these are just some other recommendations. Again, privacy settings, you can go on our website. A really good way to monitor your kids is to have them use their devices in in an open area of your house. A lot of families will say you can't take it to your room. And then they'll say, well, you take it to your room. So that might be something you guys can talk about. Maybe not having maybe not charging them in the bedrooms. And then that includes all family members so that they're more able to buy into that. Remove all those third-party streaming apps because a lot of times those can create problems for your kids as well. And then you can actually ask companies not to sell your data. If you go to donotsell.org, you can actually fill out a request that they do not sell your personal data for profit. We helped pass a law in California that companies are not allowed to take data from kids 18 and young or under 18. And we're hoping to pass those laws in all of the other states across our country. So that's the kind of things that we work for in Washington, D.C. We have a D.C. team and they work closely with Congress to pass those bills. Let's go to the next slide. And then prepare kids for online communication as they get older. And kids are using social media at younger ages. We know that they're supposed to be 13, but even if your children are using a game like Roblox or Minecraft, there's a chat feature on there. And that is actually considered social media. So if your children are using a game, make sure that you know there's a chat feature on there. And if you don't want your kids chatting on there, make sure you disable that and you talk about those rules with them. There's probably a way that you can also set it to friends only. Make sure that you are talking about all of these risks with your kids, but prepare them for that communication. One way we can do that on the next slide is we can talk to them about that red flag feeling that I was talking about. So encourage this vocabulary and adopt this term, red flag feeling. Ask your kid if they have red flag feelings when they're ever online and talk about what those red flag feelings are. And if you want to share what you think some red flag feelings are in the chat, please do so. On the next slide, you'll see that we have some examples, but they could be examples, nasty remarks, for example, making fun of somebody. So let's go to the next slide, please. And it could be through text messages too. It doesn't have to just be on social media. It could be sending hurtful messages through those apps or on text, posting inappropriate photos of somebody or videos. Sometimes people will take your pictures, they'll put it onto something else. With AI right now, it's really, really scary that somebody can take your face and put a voice to it, and it actually sounds like you. So have these conversations with your kids. And then another red flag feeling that kids get is FOMO. So FOMO means fear of missing out. So a lot of times because of social media, they'll see that they weren't invited to a party, or, all of their friends are at the mall or at the skate park or wherever they hang out nowadays, and they feel left out. So just talk to your kids about having alternatives to that when that happens. Maybe finding another way to connect with other friends that aren't included, or also just stepping away from the computer, stepping away from their phone and taking care of their own mental health. Okay, let's go to the next slide because I do want to leave room for Q&A. Let's just go on to the next slide. Let's keep going. So I want us to participate in this scenario. So this is the scenario one. So an acquaintance that you know, or that your children know, posts a disparaging comment. So post a very negative comment about one of your family members. Okay, so think about this. An acquaintance or a friend or a frenemy or an enemy posts a really bad comment about your family member. Okay, so this could be your perspective. You're a mom or a dad, and you see that somebody has said something bad about your child or your husband or your sister or whatever. Okay, what are you going to do? So let's go to the next slide. This is an exercise you can do with your kids. So you can give them that question. What if this happened? So then you can think about it. The first thing you want to do for your kids is you want them to feel, you want them to actually be in tune with their feelings when they're up against this challenge, when they're in this digital drama, this digital dilemma. You want to have them feel it, because a lot of times people don't stop and listen to their feelings and then they just react. So we want to feel. So just have them pause for a minute, and I want you to pause for a minute. So what do you feel? And why do you feel that the situation is going to be hard? Why are you having trouble with the situation? So ask your child, why would you be having trouble with this information? Or why do you think this is a difficult situation for the people involved? And what might they be feeling? What are you feeling right now? What do you think you would feel like if you saw this happen? So ask them that. They might say, I don't really care because I don't really care about this person's opinion, or just because somebody says something doesn't make it true. All kids are different. And so if that's the case, great. But most adults would be offended by it, right? They would get worked up. They will say, how dare they talk about my person like that? That is so rude. That's mean, unkind. Imagine how you can handle it. So what are you going to do? Some people will shoot right back, right? They'll get on there and they'll start fighting. They'll have words with the people. They might get on the phone and say, hey, did you see this post? I can't believe she posted this about me or my son or whatever. What are you going to do? How are you going to react? And then brainstorm with your children. What are some ways that we can figure this out positively? So what are some ideas? And then what is the best way to communicate a solution? So let's say somebody said something bad about me online, or my friend or my son. What am I going to do? I'm going to choose to ignore it. That's one way, right? Another way is to, if you know this person well enough, you might want to have an offline conversation with them. That might be a positive way. Because if you do it and you put it online, then everybody's going to see it, right? Or you can send them a private message and you can communicate, this made me feel this way. What's another positive way? Does anybody have an idea? Put it in the chat if you have an idea what you can do about it. If it's a very nasty comment or a very damaging comment, you can get people involved, right? You can get a teacher involved. You could get even the authorities involved if it's something very bad, like a threat. And then communicate. What would be the best way? Like I said, would you respond online? Would you give them a phone call? Maybe they're your neighbor. Maybe you can have an in-person discussion with them and said, I saw this comment and can you please, I would like you to please remove it. Like, what are some things that you can do? So this is a scenario that you can practice with your kids. Let's go to the next situation. Okay, and then if your child is being bullied, there are some things you can do. First and foremost, you want to remind them that you love them and that you're going to be there for them, right? You want them to step away immediately, just disconnect immediately if you see that they're being bullied. Another thing you want to do is take screenshots. You want to gather evidence. Some kids will do it on Snapchat because they think that the messages will disappear. And if you take a screenshot of it, it'll tell the person that they took a screenshot of it. So you could take a a photo of it with a different phone. And that way the person won't know that you took a screenshot. But gather evidence, stay calm, right? And then report it to the authorities if you need to. Report it to the teachers. A lot of times if you go to the parents, it might not end well. So just make sure that you know exactly the best way to handle the situation. And yes, empower that family member that with these steps as well, and to let them know that you're always there for them. A lot of kids feel shame that they're being cyberbullied because they don't want their parents to know that somebody doesn't like them. They feel embarrassed, or they might think that they're going to get blamed for being unliked, for example. Just remind them that you're always going to be there for them and that you'll work it out together. Let's go to the next page. If your child is going to be on social media, there are different platforms that are known for certain things. For example, Snapchat, for example, is known for those messages that disappear. Instagram has been shown to be not a great platform for girls specifically. We did some research on that, and we found that Instagram is most damaging to young girls. So starting in middle school to early high school, they are the most affected group. And I think it's because they are going through changes physically and emotionally at that stage. And they're constantly being compared to one another. They're very worried about how they're developing or how they look. And so they're very worried about how many likes they're going to get, how many hearts they're getting, how many positive comments they're getting. Boys, on the other hand, with Instagram, they're not so worried about it. Usually when a boy is complimented, they're complimented with how strong they are, most of the time on their sports or something. With girls, 99% of the comments are how beautiful they are, how hot they are, what a great body they have, and all of this. So there's a lot of shaming on there that goes as well. So be careful with the platforms that your kids are on. And let's go to the next slide. If you don't know what these platforms do, we have something called the Parents Ultimate Guides. And we have videos, and they're available in English and Spanish. We also have articles. You can learn more about the actual platform and what it does, what it's about, and how to manage it. It'll tell you exactly what to do. So these are very helpful videos. These are probably one of our most highly desired pieces of content because they're quick, they're very informative, and they're very relevant right now. Let's go to the next one. And then, of course, keep talking about that mental health. We are going into a big mental health initiative right now. We did some studies on mental health and digital media use, and it's inconclusive. We don't know what came first. If the kids who are already struggling with mental health are being affected more with social media and other media use, or if the social media and digital media made them have mental health issues. We don't know yet. So we want to make sure that we get a better picture of that. We don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg. So we need to constantly look at our kids to see how they're feeling when they're using it, ask questions, use it with them. And, if you notice any changes of behavior, obviously that's a red flag. Let's go to the new slide. And then ways to keep your mind and body safe and healthy, because that's another way to be safe online, is on the next slide. We want to make sure that we have those regular check-ins with them. This is another scenario. We don't really have a lot of time, but this is another scenario you can pose to your children. Just say, your family member spends too much time browsing on their phone or binging shows. Any tips for curbing habits? What works for you? And then go to the next slide. And these are some solutions. So remove autoplay. A lot of people will put the remote control far away, so they have to get off of the couch. And by the time they get to the remote, maybe they figure out, you know what? I'm done. Now they get distracted because they're already up, and they're like, oh, I'm going to go get a snack, or I'm going to go to my room now. And so it gets them up and away from the TV. Make a plan. You can use those tech planners, or you can just talk about it. Like, what are you going to do if you can't see the show? What can you replace it with? Let's build another habit. Let's go for a walk. Let's play a game. Let's just have a conversation, let's make something to eat together. Let's find some different things we can do. And then set limits. Obviously, you can use timers. A lot of parents will use their microwave timer, especially as little kids are learning to self-regulate. And they have those temper tantrums. You can use a timer for the little ones and say, okay, when this timer goes off, it's going to be time to put it away. Always having another activity ready for those little ones is also really helpful because then they have something to look forward to. All right, so let's go to the next one. Another thing that you can think about is how your kids are using media. So if they're only using it to scroll, that's not good, right? You want them to use it interactively and you want them to use it creatively. So everything in balance. It's okay to watch shows. I mean, everybody likes shows, right? But we also want to use it interactively. Is that a video game? Maybe, right? In balance though, we also don't want 4, 5, 6 hours of video games. So everything in balance. And then creatively, encourage them to do something creative. If they want to learn a language, if they want to learn to play an instrument, if they want to learn how to cook or dance, they can use it creatively. If they are good with digital technology, have them make their own videos, have them create a slideshow of photos. When you go on a family vacation, put them in charge of the photos, for example, and then have them make a digital photo album for you. These are all ways that you can encourage creativity. There are kids that love to code. There are kids that love science. Encourage a pastime of theirs, a favorite hobby, and have them use technology for that as well. Let's go again to the next slide. And then if you're like, I just want to check in, maybe you're not seeing any of these problems. Maybe your child is not. It doesn't mean that they're always going to feel okay. So just check in with them, right? Are they physically healthy and sleeping enough? Are they connecting socially? Not just online, but offline as well with family and friends. How's their schoolwork? How are their grades? Are they doing well? Are their grades slipping? Are they losing interest in, school or other hobbies that they once found enjoyable? Are they having fun again? Are they using it in balance? Are they using it not only passively for entertainment, but are they also using it to learn something? Are they also using it to be creative? And then this is a big one, right? If your kids are having issues with friendships in real life, it will probably spill over onto their online life. So if they're already struggling offline, it might be a good idea not to let them be online until they can figure that out. Because that's just, like I said, another avenue for them to find problems. And then obviously, are there any changes in behavior? Are they not eating? Are they not sleeping? Do they look different? This might be a sign of other issues. I don't want to scare anybody, but there are kids who are using social media to purchase drugs. And so that's another thing. You can have a frank discussion with your kids. A lot of times we say, not my kid, but it could be anybody's kid. And these are the conversations that we have to have. When I would have these conversations with my kids, they would laugh at me and be like, oh my gosh, Mom, I can't believe you're asking me this question. Don't you know who I am? And I'd be like, yes, I know you are, but I also know that you're a child or a teenager, and I know that you're going to be around other kids that might be offering you these things, or you might be around it. So I don't want to, not ask you these questions. Like, don't be afraid to have these very uncomfortable conversations. The best time that I found to have these conversations were when we were in the car and they couldn't leave and they didn't have to look at me. We would both just be looking ahead. And I would ask the question, and it could be uncomfortable. Have you ever watched pornography? I mean, it was like so uncomfortable. Of course, you're not probably going to get the truth, but at least they know you're thinking about it, right? You're like, because I know that some kids are watching that, and that's not something that we approve of, and it's not good for your mental health to be watching those things, and it's not okay. That's not real life. Like, these are the conversations that are so uncomfortable to have. Best thing I found was to have them in the car looking forward, and they opened up a little more with me. Let's go to the next page. When to offer support when you see these red flags, if you see that they're disconnecting from life, if they're only online the whole time and they're becoming addicted. This is the other thing. We still don't have a clear answer on addiction. That is another one. Addiction is a very strong word. It has to be technically diagnosed by a medical doctor, and we have not gotten the A-OK to be able to say that technology can be addictive. Like, we don't know. We don't know if it's just a habit or if it's an actual need. Like, are you going to go through withdrawals like you do when you're addicted to a substance? We don't know yet. I kind of feel like it can be, because you find yourself going down a rabbit hole, right? And especially if life's not going well for you, or you're lonely, or let's say your friendships are, not going well, you're just going to want to be online the whole time. So these are also things to think about. And then another thing is if they're losing their friendships, that could also be a red flag that they have online friendships with strangers. So these are just the things to think about. Also, turn off background TV. A lot of times our little ones are exposed to things that they shouldn't be, especially the news. So when we're talking about keeping our kids safe, we also want to keep them safe from inappropriate content. So if your children are young and you have the nightly news on and they're talking about the war, for example, it might be really scary for kids to hear that, or if they're hearing about a school shooting, for example. So be really mindful of your background TV, and screens off at least an hour before bedtime. There is research that shows that kids sleep better when they have disconnected an hour before bed, even adults. And then silence those notifications as well. If your child is going to have permission to have their phone in their room at night, make sure that their notifications are silent so that they can get sleep. We know that children are getting interrupted throughout the night, especially teenagers, and that is affecting their schoolwork. Set limits and encourage other activities. Be a good role model. Let's go to the next slide. And then here are some additional resources for you. On the next slide, you'll see that we have a website. We have our ratings and reviews. If you want to make informed decisions, like I was talking about earlier, that's what they look like. If you see a little badge on there like that, that means that we've already reviewed it, and you can review it if you want, but you can have if you trust us, you'll know that we've already reviewed that and we've given our seal of approval. Next slide. And here's our parenting page. We have Q&As. We have, like I said, videos, other articles, and other resources in English and Spanish. On the next page, we have a community page. So if you want to learn about other cultures, or if you want your children to learn about your culture, we have multicultural resources here as well. We know it's really important for kids to see themselves represented in the books and other media that they use. They want to see themselves reflected in positive ways. So seek out those positive role models also in the media they're exposed to. And we have some brand new videos on YouTube if you want to learn more about how much is too much. So let's say you want to figure out like how much TV or how much digital media should my kids be using. We have a video on that available in English and Spanish. And then we also have a video on when is the right time to get my child the phone. A lot of parents have that question. Last but not least, here's just some takeaways. I'd like you to think about one thing that you can work on. Maybe you've already implemented these things and you need to revisit them. Maybe you want to do all of them, but think about at least one that you want to implement as you walk away today and you go home. What's one thing you can focus on this week? And then if you haven't really been intentional about your media and tech use, take this in baby steps. Take a screenshot of this. You will have access to this slideshow after today. So you will have all of the resources and all of this. But if you want to take a screenshot for today and go home tonight and say, this is what we're going to do today. We're going to create a tech plan. Or you know what? I'm going to check in on my kids' mental health. I've noticed that there is a change going on. Sometimes we just need a little nudge, right? So, and above all, I don't want anybody feeling guilty about how you're raising your kids with digital media. It's not the same for everybody. Align it with your values, trust your gut as a parent, be a good role model, and you'll be great.